Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again from Film Fanatic headquarters. Hope everyone's doing good. It is about 9:54 here on a Saturday morning. Pretty overcasty, rainy day. So I want to thank some really good friends and some folks that came out. We played a show last night at the Starboard Lounge, which is a part of this really fabulous new restaurant called Hey Sailor in Searsport. Super cool place. It's a real wonderful place to see music. And last night was the first time I got a chance to play there, and it's such a treasure, that place. Wonderful sound system, great sound people that are running it, and super cool. And I remember at one point during the show, I try. I'm not a big. I don't like to talk very much during our gigs. I'm not really that kind of person. I do like to, obviously try to be very thankful to the people, the audience, whoever shows up, and do those kinds of courtesy things that you need to do. But I'm not. I don't like to talk between songs or like talk about how a particular song came about or what it inspired. I just kind of like to do the music, focus on that, and then I'll talk, in between sets or whatever. But at one point last night when we took a 2 minute break in between after playing for a while, I had just said to the people that were there that it's a real treasure because too often a lot of local musicians, myself included, and people who are maybe solo acts or full bands, you know, the thing that comes with the territory all the time is you have to set up your own sound system, and a lot of times you have to move furniture. You have to like make the space into that place, into the you have to create that aesthetic for it to feel like you're seeing music or you're performing music, and that's often it's fine, and it's become a thing that you just have to kind of do and adapt to, but it's an extra thing to always worry about and to think about. And there are times where it can really, uh, you know, put a blemish on that performance because there isn't necessarily a sound person. The band is kind of performing, but they're running sound at the same time. And, sometimes you can dial it in and it works okay, but a lot of the times it doesn't because it's hard to go, and it's hard to wear those two hats at the same time. Performing into itself is uh, a huge amount of work into itself onto itself. So when you have the luxury of going to a place and you don't have to worry about setting up the sound system and doing a full sound check with everything that entails, you can just worry about the performance. It's a real beautiful feeling. So I had said last night, that this place is just wonderful and a gift for our mid coast music scene because there's a lot of great venues in the area, but this place is pretty rare because it feels like a bona fide concert hall. I've gone there a few times to see music. I've had a couple of friends play there, and you just have that experience like you're going to see a concert as opposed to like, well, I'm going to a bar or a restaurant and there's a band that happens to be playing there, which is fine and can be great, but it feels it feels like in this place like it's a featured thing. So and it's more or less the focus, and really great. So thanks again for some good friends that showed up, and we had a really great time, and hope to be back there pretty soon. So today's show is on actually a documentary. I've said before in previous videos, or in a couple of videos, where I was having some pretty bad problems with my home system that I watch movies, mainly around my DVD Blu-ray player that I have. I've had this one player for about close to 8 years, and and I watch movies on it all the time. And I remember it was probably about a year ago or so. I own my main thing that I like to buy, and I try to focus on is basically I focus on trying to beef up my Blu-ray collection, and I try to put my focus on that because to me that's like the best way to the best quality, Blu-ray, 4K. It's like just superior. So I try to focus on that, but I still do buy DVDs. I buy them. There's they have come down obviously, and they're so incredibly cheap now. It's just ridiculous. And so I still buy DVDs, but I try to make the focus on Blu-rays. And when I first got into movies, I bought a shit ton of DVDs. And so one of these days, it's been in a state of disarray. But one of these days, I want to do a video of where I'm going to do a tour of my collection, where I'm just going to have like my camera roll and just talk about all the movies and the movies I have accumulated over the last few years. But right now it's a little bit in chaos. It's in a chaotic state, so can't really do that. But it will happen. I think it'll be a cool little video to do. But anyway, I still watch DVDs all the time, and I noticed about a year ago, certain DVDs were just not playing on my player. They stopped, and I have a shit ton of DVDs, and so my recent purchase of my most recent haul of movies that I bought a pretty good amount of Blu-rays, but I did buy quite a few DVDs. And so I had some problems around that where the player wasn't playing DVDs anymore. It was just not registering any of the movies. And so it was a super bummer because I still like DVD a lot. And then it started happening with certain Blu-rays. Like I can play pretty much any Blu-ray movie that I own, but it would the player itself would take a minute or two for the disc to register. You could hear it like struggling to connect. But it would always play. But it was like sometimes the case you have to sit there and eject it and turn the power off, put it back in. It's kind of a pain in the ass, and it's gotten worse. So I had to get a new player. So I ended up getting a new player, and the new player is super cool because now I can watch anything. There's no problems with it at all. So today's show is on a documentary that I wanted to get to, and I was really eager to watch because it looked really cool and really interesting. And that is Never Sleep Again. It's the Elm Street legacy, and basically this is a 3 hour documentary on the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Super cool, and it's DVD. It's 2 discs. It's like the movie itself is like 3 hours. Like it's crazy. It's a documentary too, and there's a bonus disc on here of all special features. And so I started watching this last night. I got through most of it, but I was super pissed when I bought this because I was like I got this at Goodwill, and I was like, wow, like this is really cool. I don't think I have any videos on the channel about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, which I have no idea why. That's something I will eventually do because I'm a huge fan, especially the first one. I think that I'm a huge Robert Englund fan and a huge Wes Craven fan. So that movie was a game changer. I think it's one of the best 80s slasher movies ever. One of the most influential, one of the most iconic. Freddy Krueger, of course, is like, you know, right up there with like Michael Myers, Leatherface, Pinhead, Jason Voorhees. I mean, he's an icon. So, and for whatever reason, I just haven't done any shows on any of those movies. I do like the entire franchise, but it's been a long, long time since I have seen the other movies. I it's probably been a year since I watched Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't have that on DVD. I have it on VHS. My VHS player has kind of crapped the bed a little bit, so I haven't watched it in about a year. But I'm a huge fan of the franchise. I've always been a big fan. Definitely, that movie is a product, and those films for that matter, are definitely a product of my childhood. So I will do a show on those movies. But I was super excited when I came across this, 3 hour documentary on the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I thought, wow, this is cool. And I think, I'm not totally sure, but I think it's the case. I think there's like two different editions on the market of the basically the whole collection of the Nightmare on Elm Street on Blu-ray, and I believe that there's a 4K version also now of where all the movies. I think it's all 4 or 5 movies are included, and I believe that this documentary is part of it. I'm not sure. I The reason I haven't bought any Nightmare on Elm Street movies on Blu-ray is I just haven't found uh, the edition that I really want. Like it's been, and it happens. That happens. Like there's a couple of movies. There's a few movies actually that I have been dying to get on Blu-ray, but I just have not found like the right edition of where it's like, worth the purchase. And also like a collector's edition version of the movie where it will have like a bunch of special features. And a lot of times I'm really surprised that that doesn't exist. Like recently, I just bought Halloween, the original, for the very first time. One of the greatest movies ever. I've seen that movie so many times, it's insane. And I have numerous copies of that on Blu-ray, or not Blu-ray, I should say DVD and VHS. And I have a good collector's edition, but I've been wanting for years to buy it on Blu-ray, and I've come across it, and I just they're all like kind of standard issues. They didn't really have any special features, and they were kind of expensive for the price of not having special features and all of this stuff. And I just came across all kinds of editions like that, and I just wasn't happy. So I finally found a really great anniversary collection that has tons of special features. It actually has the footage from the original, the edited TV version of the film, which is actually really great, really great. And I finally picked that up, and it's amazing. And I got it on Blu-ray, and so surprising of all movies. One of the most popular slasher movies, if not the most popular slasher movie of all time. I had the darndest time finding it. I could probably order it online, I'm sure, but I'm not really, as people know, I'm not really into that whole sort of thing. Uh, so I finally found it. Finally got it, and I came across that situation for quite a few movies. John Carpenter's The Thing is another movie, one of the greatest movies ever, probably the greatest John Carpenter movie. I have had the darndest luck finding a really good version of that. I've had a good well, I did, but it broke. It's actually got scratched and shit. I had a really great edition of The Thing on DVD, a collector's edition, but it got trashed and it was pretty bad. And so I've been looking for that for a long time on Blu-ray, and I just haven't found that definitive copy yet. But I will, sure I will. Another movie, my favorite movie of all time, The Godfather. I have that on DVD. I have the box set, and I just have not found that definitive version yet on Blu-ray. So it's always surprising when it happens, especially in this day and age. So when I've come across the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, it's been the same case. Uh, just not finding the right version. Like how I said, I just bought Halloween, like a really great edition. So the other movie that I've been dying, probably more than any other movie, as far as science fiction or horror, the movie I've been dying to get, which I cannot find, and it's always there's there's tons of like standard Blu-ray copies, but there's no like collector's editions. There's no that I have come across. There's no discs, Blu-ray editions with any like bonus tracks or bonus features or special features. Nothing. No documentaries. And that is the Road Warrior, George Miller's epic classic. I have not been able to find that at all. So that's the same reason why I haven't bought Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm still waiting to find that definitive copy. So, which will happen. I get inundated with wanting to buy other things a lot of the time. So, but it will eventually happen. But this was a steal. This was like $10, and I got it at Goodwill in Rockland. I was just talking to a friend last night about Goodwill in Rockland and how, it's just an awesome place. They have so many great things there. I've gotten so many great movies there. I went there last Sunday and I got a shit ton of movies. And but when I bought this, my player wasn't working, and I was super bummed. I couldn't watch it, so I was like, blue balling it for like a week or two or more, and so it's been super awesome to be able to actually watch this. But this is really great. It's super in depth. The documentary goes into like extreme detail of every uh, facet of each movie. It's really interesting. And there's a lot of great interviews with the cast. There's some really great interviews with Robert Englund, of course. And the best part is there's all these great interviews with Wes Craven. And it's just he's one of those guys I just love to hear his dialogue and his take on film. He was such a brilliant guy and an amazing filmmaker. And he just had such insight, and he has a very different perspective um, than most filmmakers. You know, I think he has such a huge grasp of like human psychology, and he really used that as a tool for creating these movies. And you know, I've always been a huge Wes Craven fan, and it was very sad when he passed away. But this is uh, really great. This is probably one of the better documentaries that I've seen on a franchise. I have a couple of great documentaries on movies. My favorite one of all time, which I did a show on last year, a while back, is the Alien Crudology, and that is really a deep dive into. And they're all like documentaries on each movie in the Alien franchise, and it's astounding. It's so awesome. A lot of times I will just watch that, and I won't even watch the movies with it. I will just watch the those documentaries because they're so amazing and so insightful and so interesting. Like you really, I don't know. I feel like watching when you find a really good documentary, but especially this Alien Trilogy, and then also I have to say that this Nightmare on Elm Street documentary is just about as good. It I feel like when you get a good documentary or come across a great documentary, you know that a lot of the times they're included in the special features on a Blu-ray or 4K. You know, it's like going to film school. I mean, it's like taking a master class in film study or film history. You know, you go into all different avenues of film. You know, whether it's the cine. I mean, for example, like Wes Craven really goes into how and what inspired the initial story of the creation of Nightmare on Elm Street, like detailed things, and he really gets into like his like love or deep knowledge of like human psychology. Talks really in depth about that, and then also the editing part of the film, and how that whole process is comes to be. The other thing that's really interesting, they really talk about the the financing of this film and how this film was like repeatedly rejected, and how he started. They eventually got the green light from New Line Cinema, and New Line Cinema, which I did not know, which is one of the biggest uh, movie companies in the world. They're huge. I didn't realize it's been around since 1969, which is crazy. And Nightmare on Elm Street was the very first movie that they ever put out, and they risked everything. I guess at one point when they first started, they were this little storefront in New York City, and had basically nothing to their name, and they took this high risk with putting out Nightmare on Elm Street, and they were basically everything was riding on it. If the film was not successful, they would have closed. And to think of like, you know, what they were able to do, and a few years back, their biggest movies that they put out were like the Lord of the Rings movies. Like that's insane how far they've come. So this documentary really gets into that whole thing and how there was a lot of tension and fighting because of the financing the project and financing the film, and how to distribute the movie between Wes Craven and New Line Cinema. It's really interesting. It's really revealing. That's what I love. I love too often a lot of times with documentaries, or not documentaries, but special features. Like I'm not a big fan of like you have a lot of um, special features out there. Basic, well, like for example, I have, which is just an, I think it's a masterpiece of a film, but um, the Avengers Infinity War. I think that's just a masterpiece. And I bought that brand new. I loved that movie to death when I saw it in the theater. And I remember a couple of weeks after it came out, I was so fired up to see it again. I didn't give a shit how much it really cost, and I ended up buying it brand new, like at Walmart. And it was expensive. It was close to $30. Now you can get it for like, 15 bucks or so, maybe less. And I didn't. I was like, I got to see this movie, and it's amazing on Blu-ray. Like, it's definitely one of the greatest movies that I own in my collection on Blu-ray. It's a Blu-ray and 4K collection, but the special features on the movie are total shit, and I didn't know that. It on the back of the cover, it was saying how it had interviews and it was a and all this stuff behind the scenes, and I was like, it looked pretty good, but I was so my my thirst to see the movie outweighed that part of it, so I ended up buying it anyway. And and again, the movie's a masterpiece and it's immaculate on Blu-ray and 4K, but the special features are kind of crap. And the thing that sucks about it is that the special features are long and they're kind of like these little behind the scene documentaries or interviews. But they're basically like little info ads, and it's basically the cast and the people involved with the MCU just basically sitting around, very generically talking or casually talking about the movie and how they conceive the movie, but like in very generic terms. There's nothing in depth about it, and then they're also like rubbing their own rhubarb the whole time, and they're just kind of everything that they're saying is about trying to sell the movie and saying how you have to see it. It's opening this weekend, blah blah blah. As opposed to them just talking about the movie and getting in detail about the nuts and bolts of how the movie came about. And it's just like super generic, standard issue kind of shit. So that part's disappointing. But this documentary is that's what I want to see as a fan of a movie. I want to see if I'm into a movie, I really want to see, or into a franchise, I want to get my hands greasy. I want to get in with the nuts and bolts of how this project came about, how it inspired it, and where how it got distributed, how what this distribution was like, and what the real influences were on the film, what inspired it, and how do the when how do the filmmakers feel about the movie now that time has passed, and just all those things. And this is a great one. I totally worth it, and super excited that I bought this. So if you're a fan of the franchise, this is it just goes into such extensive detail of each film in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So very, very cool. I'm really excited I finally got to watch it and that I can actually watch it now. So I'm just about done with it, but very, very cool. And I can't recommend it enough. And I will be doing shows of where I'm going to be talking about the actual franchise and the movies. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.